I want to welcome you to my channel. I'm Danielle from Our Roaming Hearts, and today we're going to talk about the Biltmore Estate at Christmas time. Now, they don't allow you to film at the Biltmore Estate, sadly, but during my one-day visit during Christmas time, I took over 600 photos. So I'm going to be sharing those with you along with what I learned along the way. In case you don't know what the Biltmore Estate is, it's located in Asheville, North Carolina, and it is the largest privately owned estate in the country. The Biltmore Mansion was built by the Vanderbilts. They owned massive amounts of land all the way through the Great Depression. This house was privately owned. During the Great Depression, they started opening it up for tours to bring tourism into North Carolina. They have since sold off part of their land to the government for the Pisaga National Forest. I think I said that right. To this day, they still do tours of not just the estate, but the grounds as well. And we'll cover all that because they do it upright for Christmas. So when you enter the estate, the first thing you'll do is drive down the beautiful winding driveway that visitors would have used back when this estate was in its heyday. You visit the visitor center. This is where you can get tickets if you didn't buy them online. This is where you can get information, buy any of your behind the scenes tours. I did do one of the behind the scenes tours, the upstairs downstairs tour, and I will be doing a separate video on that. I'll link it above. Now, from there, you get back in your car and you head to the parking lots. You can get a parking lot that's really close and you can walk up to the mansion, or if you park, they do offer free trolleys up to the mansion and back. Once there, you go in, and I got the audio tour. It's this little device. You plug in a number based on what room you're in and hit go, and it gives you information about the rooms, stories from family members, and all sorts of great information. When you first walk in, you are greeted by a massive entranceway. To your left is the staircase that you hear so much about, and you actually go up and down that staircase later on in the tour. When you start your tour, you go to the right to the winter garden. And this is the glass top indoor garden that is just beautiful. For Christmas, they decorated it up with lights and poinsettias, and it's beautiful in the reds and greens. When the mansion was in its heyday, these windows would open to give a nice breeze. The Vanderbilt's daughter, Cornelia, had her wedding breakfast around the fountain there. They would use this as an entertaining area. The rooms around the first floor there all circle around this winter room. Locations 2 and 3 are the banquet hall, otherwise known as the famous dining room. This is where they put up their massive tree that they do a huge ceremony around in November. It's one of the largest trees in the house. I believe it is the largest tree in the house. By the way, they have over 50 Christmas trees set up on the mansion alone. This tree is done up in decorations. There's presents underneath. They told us that the Vanderbilts loved to go Christmas shopping for the workers of the estate and the workers' children and buy gifts, and they all went underneath the tree for them. This is also where the massive dining room table sits. It is 72 feet long and 42 feet wide and can seat upwards of 32 people. Now, this is the space that they used for entertaining when they had guests over. They put Christmas trees on either side of the fireplaces. There are 3 fireplaces side by side. And then on the opposite wall is the massive organ. It takes up the entire wall, and it is just done up all in a cohesive blue and white and silver theme throughout the entire room. The next stop on the tour is called the breakfast room. This is basically the family's dining room. It is a less formal dining area than the previous banquet room, but it's no less extravagant. The ceilings alone are etched in beautiful designs. It is all set up, even with a small little Christmas tree of its own right here, decorated. The tables are set for you to take a look at. They have extravagant dinnerware and everything ready to be on display. You are also pointed out, and I don't have a good picture of it, but they have little hidden doorways in the wall that you don't really notice for the servants to come in and out to bring the food during mealtime, so that it's not really seen and it's not a disruption to the decoration of the room. The next stop is the salon. This is basically halfway around the circle that is the winter garden that I told you is basically the center of the living areas down here. It is done up in Christmas, continuing the blue and white theme from the banquet hall. This room is known for the fabric covering on the ceiling. It has direct views out the back of the house, which is where the magnificent mountain views and you can see the sprawling estate is, and is been used as basically a formal sitting room for guests where they can come out and talk and entertain as well. And you can see a good portion of the rest of the house as well from this room. The next stop on the tour is the music room. It's part music room, part basically where they can display some of the items. It is still intricately done and matches the rest of the house. It's just beautiful. The next stop is the loggia, otherwise known as the back porch. And it is one of my favorite stops along the way. I spent a good amount of time out here because the views are just breathtaking. They have beautiful wicker seats that match the seats that would have been there when the house was in its heyday, and you can sit down and spend some time out there. You can go up to the railings and check out the views of just the rolling hills and the mountains in the background, the grounds and everything. If you look around, you can see some of the extravagant details on the outside of the house. When you're done, you go back into the house and you head down to the tapestry gallery for your next stop. This is basically exactly what it sounds like. It is a gallery for these massive tapestries. These tapestries are 3 out of a set of 7 from the 1530s, and this entire room was designed around these 3 tapestries to display them. For Christmas, they decorated up, and you can see they put different Christmas trees in there and poinsettias, but then decorated up with these beautiful glitter and shiny Christmas decor that really, really draws it out with the lights on the trees. And it was just beautiful to look at, especially with the Christmas decorations. The tapestries themselves are just breathtaking, thinking how old they are. The tapestry room then leads into my absolutely favorite room in the entire house, the library. Let's take a look. It is 2 stories, yes, 2 stories, full of books. The ceiling has a beautiful mural on it and done up with intricate work as well. And then all around, all the walls, first story and second story, filled with books, surrounding a massive fireplace that is lit and has chairs you can sit there and read. There is someone there answering questions. Said that Vanderbilt himself had a collection of 22,000 volumes. Around 10,000 of them are in the library here, and you can see several other places around the house where they have books stored as well. George Vanderbilt is known to sit and read, and he would keep track of what he was reading, what page he stopped on, and he kept it in a little journal that they share and let you kind of peek in. You can't touch it, but they did show it to everybody where you can take a little peek at what he was into and reading, even down to the last book and the last page that he read before his death. Now, to the right of the fireplace, you can see a staircase there. That is how you can get upstairs, downstairs. And also to the right of the mantle on the second story, there's a door that opens to the guest hallway, so the guests that were visiting could come in at night, get a book, and go back out without having to go all the way through the main house to get to the library. When the guests were done, they were asked to put their books on the wood, it almost looks like a desk in the back there, and the Vanderbilts had a librarian that knew where every book went, and she would take the books from the table and put them all away where they belonged, so everything stayed right in its place. You go right upstairs through the famous staircase. At the top of the stairs, you enter the second floor living hall. This is basically designed for guests, and it's a living room where they can talk and enjoy each other's company. This is also where there's a portrait of Frederick Law Olmsted, who did the gardens of the estate. Here they give a little bit more information about the guests that would have visited and what their experience would have been like. A little bit of the portrait of the family and the information of that portrait that's there in the center before you head down the hallway to see some, not all, of the guest rooms. The first one you visit is Mr. Vanderbilt's room, and this is done up in a very manly decor with lots of rich wood finishes and the beautiful fireplace, and it's done up in reds and dark colors. It's still very easily Christmas decorated, and it looks absolutely beautiful. From his room, you join an oak sitting room, which joins Mr. Vanderbilt's room and Mrs. Vanderbilt's room. So the sitting room joined the rooms, and this is where they were known to have breakfast together, and they would talk about their day, their schedules, and this was kind of their own private getaway from the guests and their own little retreat where it was only them. You can see they have several desks there. They would do writing correspondence there, but there's also a doorway leading out to the main hallway, so they didn't have to go through a room, or if they requested someone to come into the room on a guest or whoever, they didn't have to go through one of their personal bedrooms to get there. Mrs. Vanderbilt's room is done up in this beautiful feminine room. It's an oval shaped. It has silk wall coverings, basically silk wallpaper. And this is done up in a beautiful, beautiful setting with everything that she could need, a little desk to write on. And I love that the room is round. It's not the typical square rooms that you see throughout the rest of the house. She's got beautiful fireplace there, and all the tapestries match the bedding and the curtains and the chairs. And you can tell that Mr. Vanderbilt spared no expense for his wife. From there, you walk up another set of stairs and you get a little window into the banquet gallery, the dining room there that you can kind of peek through. But then you walk through what is known as the guest hallway. To the right, there's also another row where the books that from Mr. Vanderbilt's collection are stored. And there's lots of windows looking out over the front of the property, looking out over the glass of the winter room, looking out over the driveway. There are many portraits from the Vanderbilt's collection. And then you enter the third floor living hall. The third floor living hall is more of a place where the guests would come and congregate at the end of the day. There's books to read, beautiful things, and it's more of a darker room to help them relax and get to know one another while they're there and unwind after a long day. You get some beautiful views of the driveway and down the front of the driveway from the windows that are in this hallway. From here, you can check out several of the guest rooms. One of the first guest rooms you do see is the damask room, and this is one of 33 guest rooms available on the property. You don't get to see them all, but it is one of the ones that is open, and it is known as one of the most extravagant guest rooms. As you can see, the wallpaper is just done up beautifully, curtains, and it's just everything that you would need while you're visiting the Biltmores. The next guest room is the Claude room. This is known for its royal blue chairs, the fabric on the chairs, the blue wallpaper, all done up. It was named after the French painter Claude Guerre. He was one of George Vanderbilt's favorite artists, so they did a room basically dedicated to him. Then the next guest room that you see is one of my favorites. It's called the chimney room, and it's given this name because of its chimney. The chimney and mantle is formed from a Swiss tile stove that Mr. Vanderbilt purchased during his European travels. It is a hand-painted porcelain tile. They took this tile as the inspiration from their room, and they did up curtains to match and the bedding to match, and I absolutely love the design on this room. The next room you visit is Louis XV. And this one is very special to the family, as this is the room that the women would give birth in. Because back then, once you would give birth, you were kind of confined to that room for a good week while you healed. This is where Edith Vanderbilt delivered their only child, Cornelia. And later on, Cornelia delivered her son, George Henry Vanderbilt Cecil, in this very room. And it's done up with the little baby bassinet, and it's got beautiful windows that you can look out from the bed because they were confined inside. And as they were able to get up and start walking, it does have the windows open to a little porch there, and it's just done up absolutely beautiful. I would not have mind giving birth if I got to stay in that room for a week. It is nicer than any place I had any of my kids in. The next part of your tour takes you downstairs to the basement, and you get the tour of the service quarters. From here, you walk down the stone corridor, you visit the indoor bowling alley. There's 2 lanes of what was a very modern bowling alley at the time, and this is one of the many activities that guests would be able to take part in. And even down here, it's all decorated up for Christmas. From the bowling alley, you walk into the dressing rooms, and this is where guests could come and get changed to go do one of the many activities, whether it was going outside to ride horses, the bowling alley, the swimming pool, any of the sports that they had going on. This was where they would be able to come in and quickly change to head out instead of going back up to their rooms. And especially if they were going to the pool, this was right next door. They had towels in there. They have a little seating area for the women. There's bathrooms there as well. And then you head right into the indoor swimming pool. And they said that they would fill this up every time that there was guests. This indoor pool was a 70,000-gallon pool. It measured 53 feet long and 27 feet wide and was 9.5 feet deep. It had beautiful tile work and was equipped with extravagant amenities of its time, including underwater lighting and safety ropes along with a diving platform. Unfortunately, one of the times that it was filled up, they discovered that it was a leak and it has not been filled up since. From the pool area, you head into the very modern, for their time, gymnasium. The Vanderbilts were very big on keeping in shape, and they brought in many different exercises from their travels. And as you can see, they had everything from barbells to medicine balls, Indian clubs, and even a fencing set. From there, you head down the hallway and check out the many different pantries and food storage areas. They had many food storage rooms. They had to, because you couldn't just go out to the grocery store. So a lot of the stuff was produced on the property, and when they had to bring food and items in, it was a massive load of stuff and they had to have somewhere to put it all. So they had everything from a produce room to refrigerated rooms for things like meats and items. They had the original dog gate that was kept to keep the Vanderbilt's family pet out of the kitchen and food preparation area. They have a huge pantry where they stored canned goods and things like flour and rice. They had a preserving room where they would can their items. They could hang meats and preserving items from the ceiling. As you can see there, they kept all their canning supplies there. This is also where the female servants' bedrooms were. All the female servants in the house had to be unmarried and they stayed in the house. The male servants that worked the house had to be unmarried and they stayed in the stables. All married couples worked the grounds and then they would stay in the village across the street from the ground or from the estate. They would not stay in the actual mansion itself. So from here you can see some of the servants' rooms. They were very basic, but they were still beautiful. You got your own room. You got a little wash area, a bedside table, place to store your clothes, pretty much anything that you would need there. And then, of course, all your meals and everything were provided while you were working there. From there, you walk into several kitchens. They have several different ones. The first one is the rotisserie kitchen. This is basically a huge rotisserie oven where they would prepare their famous rotisserie chicken, which is still on the menu at most of the restaurants along the estate today. And each one has beautiful views, which I'm sure the servants didn't get to take in very much of, but looking out the back of the house, they had windows to help push the heat out and bring in the cooler air. You also walk into the main kitchen, which has the beautiful copper pots and pans there, the sinks, and even the old coffee maker. They have a gingerbread house done up for Christmas in the area as well. They'll talk about some of their favorite foods and things that they do for prepping and everything else in the audio tour itself. You also get to see the little dumbwaiter that they would use to be able to pull food up and down without having to go up the stairs. You could see some of the china that was used. And then you head into the servants' dining room. They had their own little space where they could sit down and eat and enjoy some of the food that the chef would prepare for them, or he would just make extra of whatever the Vanderbilts were eating. They had a walk-in refrigerator area with a modern technology. It wasn't just an ice box. So you learn about the technology that they used on the tour. And then there's more of the pantries there. And then you can see the motor and the fan that provides air for the banquet hall pipe organ, and you can see it and hear it in action there. And then there's the basement hallway, and this has a bunch of the miscellaneous rooms, from the room that would hold all the florals and flowers that they would use to decorate the house, any of the miscellaneous pottery and china that was used, not china, but the pottery, vases, etc. that they would use around the house are stored in one of these rooms. The washing machine and the washrooms where they would iron their clothes and wash their clothes, hang them to dry, the massive dryers, that's all down here, the folding tables. And then as you walk back up and through the back stairs, you get a different view of the dining hall kind of from the back. And then you get to check out the billiard room, which is, I think they beautifully decorated it up with the Christmas decor. The lights from the trees just give off this beautiful glow to the room. This was more of a kind of men's only room. This was down underneath the men's guest quarters for the single men that would come and stay. And there's 2 billiard tables. It's decorated very manly with the taxidermy on the walls and the rich wood. And another mostly men room is the smoking and gun room that you get to check out as well. There's more of Vanderbilt's library collection in this room. And this room is just a very basic room where they would smoke their cigars and have their after dinner brandy and just talk about all things manly. And you get to get all the information there from the tour. They have the gun room where several of his hunting guns are on display. And then there's the bachelor wing hallway, which is, like I said, the single men that would stay. They would have their own section of the house away from any single females that might be staying at the other end of the house. And from there, you turn in your audio tour and you get to go and start exploring the grounds. The first place to start exploring is the old stables, and you can see in the grounds they have original brick there. You can see where the carriages and later the cars would walk or would go through into the stables. They have the ruts still in there. Now this has turned into some shops and some restaurants. You can get some of the famous Biltmore ice cream here. They have a little grab and go market. Inside they have several shops, including a Toymaker shops that has toys from back when Cornelia would have been there, some of her favorite stuff. They have a shop dedicated completely to Christmas all year round, and some of the Christmas decorations that would be on the estate. They have a confectionery store, which is all sorts of chocolates and candies, all handmade, and a lot of items and some of the favorite recipes from the Biltmore, including their teas that they liked. They have a Bookbinder's shop, which has books and all sorts of information, movies, postcards, some handmade wood items all about the Biltmore. They have the carriage shop, which is their main shop that has a little bit of everything. This is where you can do some wine tastings. They have some of the family's favorite items. Miss Vanderbilt loved lavender. They have a whole section of lavender for stuff for her. For Christmas, they have it done up with Christmas trees and all sorts of beautiful items. And then they have the Stable Cafe, which is where you can stop and have lunch or dinner. I had lunch here with the famous roasted herb chicken and this beautiful apple cake dessert. It's an Appalachian traditional dessert in the area, and just look at how beautiful it is. I almost didn't want to eat it, but I did, and I ate every bite of it. It was delicious. After you're done checking out the stables, you can walk the gardens, or you can get back in your car and check out the gardens. From there, they have the gardens out back directly from the house, which you are able to walk to. Then you do have to get in your car to head down to the village area. You drive down a beautiful driveway. You can also exit the house from here if you wish. If you wish to not check out there, they do have a shortcut back out to the exit. If you choose to go on, they do have a beautiful winding drive. It is a slow drive. People tend to stop and take it in as there's many bridges and beautiful sights. You'll also see some wild animals. We saw some turkeys, deer have been known to cross. And they do have many pullovers and sights as well, like this Azalea garden and Bass Pond Waterfall. Some steps down to a beautiful covered gazebo right on the water where you can check out the water. And there's a little walkway up to this beautiful little waterfall. From there, You drive into the village, and it's the Antler Hill Village and Winery. This is also where the inn is. If you decide to stay on the property, they do offer that as well. I'll leave a link below to some of the inn and the information on some of this stuff in the description below. Now, once you park, the Antler Hill Village is basically this beautiful village green with all these shops and restaurants around. As you can see from this map, there's a little farm. It has a little petting zoo there. They have the village green with the shops and restaurants surrounding it. And then they have the village hotel, the inn there with all the inn amenities. So as you walk into the green, there are several different shops that are all done up. The center is done up in Christmas decor. And if you're there, once the sun goes down, they light it up with Christmas lights. I'll show you some of that as we move on here. They have the different stores all done up with beautiful Christmas decor. They have items that are based on the time frame of the estate. They have a bistro and village social restaurant down there. They have information on the village green. They have the entrance to the winery. Now, if you choose to head down to the winery, it is a little bit of a walk. It's beautiful. You head down through a little covered greenery walkway, and then you head down through a basically stone walkway into the winery. It was packed when I was there, so I didn't get to do one of the wine tastings, but you can do wine tastings up at the stables by the main house. And they have a little seating area with some little place to grab something to eat, something to drink there as well. They also have the Biltmore Legacy, which is basically a Vanderbilt museum. It has a little bit of artifacts and a lot of information on them, old pictures of the family, of the house, some of the famous outfits that were worn, talking about their travels. They love to travel and how they would do that, the places they visit. They did have a history with the Titanic. They were supposed to be on the Titanic, but for whatever reason, they ended up leaving a little earlier on another ship. But some of their servants did travel on the Titanic as planned, and they did lose some of their possessions and the lives of their servants on that ship, and they have a section dedicated to that there. And then just a lot of information and old pictures of the house. As I came out of the museum, they had turned on the lights. It wasn't quite dark yet, but it was still absolutely beautiful at twilight. They have a statue of Cordelia playing with their St. Bernard, their favorite dog there. And you can see some of the beautiful lights around. I did eat at Cedric's Tavern. The Cedric was named after their dog. And I do recommend getting reservations if you can. I was lucky, and since it was just me, they were able to kind of fit me into a smaller table out on the porch area. It's covered in porch area. They do have live music, but I definitely suggest getting a reservation if you can. I had the apple cider mimosa. Everyone had been raving about it on the property. I had to check it out. They bring out pretzel bread with a brown mustard butter. Had a little tang to it. The pretzel bread, it was just amazing. There's my mimosa covered at the top with a cinnamon sugar. And then I had the Scottish salmon, and it was absolutely amazing. I'm not a huge salmon fan, but it was highly recommended from the menu, so of course I had to try it, and it made me a fan. If all my salmon tastes like this, I'd be a salmon lover. And of course, while you're there, you have to have some of the Biltmore coffee. They have their own coffee blend. And I was told that the tavern chocolate cake was one of the most requested. So of course I had to try it. Chocolate and me and coffee, just the perfect evening. And the food was all absolutely amazing. They have a beautiful covered area and a bench where they do have Santa sitting down for the kids during certain times. You'll have to check their events for that. And then at this point, it was dark, and you could just see all the beautiful lights around the green. Everything was just lit up, and they had stars, and it was just so magical just walking around and taking it all in. They had Christmas lights and the Christmas songs kind of playing in the background. You could walk around, and they had down this little path. I noticed all these twinkly lights hanging from the trees behind this little building. The building is the Buck Spring Lodge and Ranger's Cabin, and it also is kind of decorated up. I was more interested in the lights. They have this grove of trees right by the parking lot, and these lights, these twinkly lights just hanging down from the trees, and there's sitting areas in there, and take a look at this. It is just beautiful. It is magical. You feel like you're just in this little fairy wonderland. People were taking pictures. It's a beautiful place to get pictures done. Absolutely amazing. One of my favorite places outside the mansion to visit during the Christmas area. And even heading out, the main area is done up at Christmas light, all the way in, all the way out. Absolutely beautiful, amazing experience, the Biltmore at Christmas. I love the Biltmore any day of the year, but having it done up in the Christmas light and the Christmas trees is absolutely beautiful. Check out their website. I believe they do a candlelit tour starting at 5 where they as the sun goes down, they turn up all the Christmas lights in the house, and it's supposed to be this glowy, magical, beautiful tour. I decided to go with the daytime tour. I spent an entire day on the estate and I didn't even get to see everything. So if you're going to go, plan an entire day, get there early when they open and do the tours and the grounds, and just plan on eating lunch and dinner there. And it's going to be a more expensive day depending on how many of you go, but it is definitely an experience that I highly recommend if you spend money on nothing else during your visit. If you have been to the Biltmore Estate, I'd love to hear your experience. I know that they do the Biltmore in Bloom, I believe it's called. They have different events throughout the year. I would love to hear about what event you were able to visit, what your thoughts on the estate were, and all about your visit in the comments below. Please give me a like, a share, a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so you get notifications. I would love to connect with you and have you come back around for some more of my videos. And check out the videos listed right in front of you there. You might find something else that you love, and I hope to talk to you again soon.